الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن سار سبيله إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So we continue discussing the book Al-Mulaqis Al-Fiqhi by Shaykh Saleh Fawzan Hafidullah Tabarak Ta'ala, and we have ended concerning discussion relating to the ahkam that is mentioned pertaining to ahkam al-hajj and also al-umrah, and now we'll be ending that discussion where it will discuss concerning bab fi ahkam al-aqiqah. So the author Hafidullah that he included regarding matter that relates to aqiqah regarding concerning al-udhiyah. So regarding concerning matter that relates to the al-udhiyah that he mentioned, after discussing concerning al-hadi wal-udhiyah, that he mentioned concerning aqiqah as it relates to some form, as the form of sacrificing of an animal. So inshallah ta'ala we'll be discussing what is mentioned here regarding this particular topic. Tafaddal.
Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. Qala ma'allif hafidahullah. Chapter 11, page number 461, Aqiqah, sacrificial animal for the newborn. Aqiqah is one of the duties of a father towards his newborn child. It is the slaughtering of a sacrificial animal as a sign of gratefulness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for granting one a child. Offering Aqiqah is considered a confirmed act of the Sunnah, as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam offered sacrificial animals as aqiqah when his grandsons Al-Hassan and Al-Hussein were born, as related by Abu Dawood and other compilers of hadith. Also, the Prophet's honourable companions and their followers used to offer sacrificial animals as aqiqah for their newborn children. Some scholars are of the view that...
So the author first at the point that he discussed concerning aqiqah min haqq al-walid ala waladi, or ala walad ala walidi. So he discussed concerning of those matters that concerning aqiqah, that first the author Hafidullah, he discussed concerning that as for this matter concerning aqiqah, it is something which is mashru'. So something which is mashru' and al-ulama. Then he discussed concerning that with this matter of aqiqah, and of those matters that are discussed is relation to that the person who's supposed to carry out this responsibility regarding offering of the sacrifice for the newborn child, that this is the right upon the father. So aqiqah is upon the father to ensure that this sacrifice is carried out on behalf of the newborn child. So whether the father is with the mother or not, then it is more so upon the father that he should fulfill this right. And if the father is, they said that if the father is not known or missing, not in the picture, then the mother, she fulfilled this. So it's the original ruling goes back to the father, but if the father is not around or is unable, then the mother also can perform the aqiqah. That's concerning that matter that he discussed. First, so it's of the rights that's upon the father to ensure that this aqiqah, it is done for his child, whether he's with the mother or not. Then the second thing he discussed concerning the meaning of the meaning of aqiqah. So meaning al-dhabiha allati yudbaha anhu taqarruban ila Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's concerning what he generally described as the aqiqah. So the aqiqah, the ulama mentioned concerning al-dhabiha and al-walid and al-mawlud. So it's a sacrifice that is done for the newborn child. And other mention here ma yuthba min al-ghanam shukran lillah ala ni'mat al-walad. So they mention concerning that it's a sacrifice that is done by way of a ghanam, of sheep, of a form of shukr, praise, thankfulness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the blessing of a newborn child. So that's concerning what is an aqiqah. That he mentioned regarding concerning here, that he mentioned the hukum. فَهِيَ سُنَّةً سَنَّهَا رَسُولَ الْإِسلام. Concerning it is something which is mashru'. Concerning it is something which is mashru'. So the Prophet ﷺ have established this act regarding concerning aqiqah, where he performed it, and also out of that it was done for some of the children that were born during his time. Then he mentioned the hadith that that he did Haqqa and Hassan wal Hussein. So he mentioned concerning that it is something that he did for Hassan and Hussein. So regarding concerning that particular hadith, regarding that Islam did the aqiqah for Hassan and Hussein, there's some discussion regarding that athar, regarding that hadith. We will find concerning the hadith in Abu Dawood and others. But you will find concerning a discussion regarding concerning the hadith, khilaf between ulama, that of those who hold that the hadith it is mursal, that the hadith it doesn't have a complete chain, but you find that the likes of Ibn Khuzaymah, Shaykh Abdul Haq al-Ishbili, and others, Ibn Hazm, and others, that they all the hadith to be sahih. So they all concern the hadith, and also Arnaud, that an Albani of contemporary, who take that this hadith regarding that the Prophet of Islam offer the Aqiqah, a sacrifice for Hassan and Hussein, mentioned caption. For each of them, a single animals was sacrificed. So they mentioned the hadith that it is generally sahih, even though Abu Hatim al-Razi, that they all the hadith to be mursal. So that's concerning that matter. And what he mentioned regarding concerning that, the Sahaba did it, and also the Tabi'i and the Sahaba did for their children. That's also the statement of Imam Ahmad rahimahullah. That's the qawl, a statement of Imam Ahmad rahimahullah regarding that the Prophet Islam did it, and also the Sahaba, and becoming an established practice amongst the Muslims. Aywa.
Some scholars are of the view that Aqiqah is obligatory. For Al-Hasan narrated on the authority of Sumaira that Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, every newborn boy is pawned by the Aqiqah offered for him. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, in explaining this hadith, said, pawned here means that if he dies as a baby, he can intercede with Allah in favor of his parents.
So that's concerning the second matter he discussed concerning Hukm al-Aqiqah. So he mentioned here concerning ذهب بعد أهل العلم إلى وجوبها, that a group amongst the ulama, that they have taken the position that the Aqiqah it is wajib. So they take the position is something which is wajib to be done. Of those who of that view, there's a riwayah and Imam Ahmad regarding it, that he owes it to be wajib, and also it's the position taken by the Zahiriyah. So the Zahiriyah, that they have the view that Aqiqah it is wajib. So that's concerning, we find that Jumhur of the ulama, majority of the ulama, that they have taken the view as to be mentioned that it is not wajib. It is not wajib, rather sunnah mu'akkada. But he mentioned here first that a group of the ulama who are more inclined towards the view that the Aqiqah is wajib. As for the hadith that is mentioned, that the hadith here, that on Hassan and Samura, that hadith is somewhat, the hadith is sahih. Whereas An-Nasa'i, that he mentioned, لم يسمع حسن من سمرة إلا hadith al-Aqiqah. So the discussion regarding concerning did Hassan heard from Samura. So Hassan being a tabi'i and Samura being a sahaba, did both of them actually met? So a discussion between the ulama, that they mentioned that Hassan only heard the hadith from Samura relating to Aqiqah. Other than this, he didn't hear from him. So he only heard the hadith of Aqiqah from Samura, the Sahabi. So that's concerning, that's based upon this, the whole hadith, it is authentic on this matter. Then Aywa,
who offered Aqiqah on the occasion of his birth. Imam Ibn Qayyim said, a child grows up good nurtured and well-mannered if Aqiqah is offered on the occasion of her birth. According to the most valid opinion in this correction, Aqiqah is a confirmed act of the Sunnah. Moreover, sacrificing an animal as Aqiqah is much better than giving its value in charity. Aqiqah is a sign of the parents' gratitude to Allah for blessing them with a newborn baby. It is also a means of drawing oneself near to Almighty Allah, being charitable to the poor, and spiritually ransoming the newborn child.
So the third of the masail that he discussed concerning Aqiqah, mentioned concerning as-sahih, that concerning the author, mentioned it is as-sahih, annaha, yani Aqiqah, sunnatun mu'akkadatun, that concerned the hukum regarding Aqiqah. So first, he mentioned regarding the qawl of some of the ulama, a minority of the ulama, that Aqiqah is wajib. But as for the second view regarding the hukum of Aqiqah, then it is mentioned it is something which is sunnah mu'akkada. So it is sunnah mu'akkada, and that's the qawl, that's the view taken by Jumhur of the ulama. So majority of the ulama, that they take the position that carrying out the act of Aqiqah on behalf of the newborn child, which often a sacrifice, that this is something which is sunnah mu'akkada, where they mention that and of those who have this view, that you find that amongst the Malikiyah, the Shafi'iyah, and the Hanabila, that they take the position, that they take the view to something which is sunnah, it is mustahab, ghayru wajib, and is not compulsory regarding Aqiqah. They mention فَمَنْ أَتَى بِهَا, and the one who somewhat fulfill it, فَقَدْ أَحْسَن, then he has done well. وَمَنْ تَرَكَهَا فَلَا حَرَجْ. And the person who did not do it, then there's no haraj. So that's according to the view of Jumhur of the ulama. So they mention that a person who does fulfill Aqiqah by offering of the sacrifice, then the person have done very well. But if the person did not, he left it, then la haraj, then there's nothing upon him. So that's concerning the view of Jumhur of the ulama regarding this matter, regarding Aqiqah. So a discussion also included regarding a matter that is discussed between the ulama, that which is preferred. What is preferred for a person to offer the Aqiqah, to get the animal and to slaughter it, or for a person to pay the amount, the equivalent amount in charity. So for example, the animal was the value £200. Is it preferred to buy the animal, sacrifice it, or to use that money and to give it in charity? So we have a discussion between ulama on that matter, but they mention that what is better is for the person to offer the sacrifice, the Aqiqah, as it is the sunnah and the thing that the Prophet Islam that he encouraged regarding of those things, the rights of the newborn. So it is preferred for the person to offer the animal and not to give the money, to use that money and give it in charity. So that's concerning that matter. Then he also kind of somewhat quotes concerning Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah regarding this matter, based upon the fact that Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah have a book that he goes into detail regarding this matter, or cover this matter in some details, and that book is called Tuhfatul Mawlud. He has a book, Tuhfatul Mawlud, that discusses concerning Ahkam al-Mawlud. So that's concerning the third matter that discussed regarding Qawl al-Sahih, according to the author, that it is Sunnah Mu'akkada, and that's the qawl of Jumhur of the ulama amongst the Shafi'iyah, the Hanabila, and the Malikiyah. Aywa.
2 equal eels with nearly the same age and shape are to be sacrificed as a Aqiqah for a newborn boy, whereas 1 eel is to be sacrificed for a newborn girl. Quz al-Ka'biyah narrated that she heard the Prophet ﷺ saying, 2 equal ewes are to be sacrificed for the newborn boy, and 1 is to be sacrificed for a newborn girl. Related by Imam Ahmed and At-Tirmidhi, who deemed it sahih, according to the hadith related by Aisha.
Aywa. So the hadith concerning Qurz al-Qa'biyah, some discussion regarding the hadith, but also you find the hadith of Aisha anha also is Hassan. So they mention the hadith that it is that which is sahih regarding or Hassan regarding concerning what is mentioned regarding an al-Ghulam Ch.10 mutakafiyatan wa an al-Jariya shah. So that's concerning that this discussion was the fourth of the discussion regarding matter that relates to Aqiqah, that discuss concerning miqdar ma yuthbah. So what's the how many animals are to be slaughtered. So as for the boy, the newborn boy baby, then it's for him for 2 animals. So Ch.10, so it is preferred that one offer 2 sacrifice for the boy and 1 for the girl. So that's concerning, as mentioned in the hadith, as mentioned or stated in the hadith, that it mentioned for the boy 2 animals, and for a girl just 1. So that's concerning the miqdar. But ulama also, so that mentions that's what is preferred to be done. Second, that links that is attached to this matter is regarding concerning that it is allowed if 1 is done for the boy, then it is sufficient. So if the person is unable to afford for the newborn boy baby, and he can afford 1 animal, then then this is sufficient. As in the hadith we mentioned before regarding the hadith of Samura, or the hadith concerning that the hadith we mentioned for, the hadith of Ibn Abbas, that state concerning the hadith of Ibn Abbas in the Abu Dawood, that Aqqa and Hassan or Hussein, Kabsha, that Isa alayhi salam, that he offer as a sacrifice for the Aqiqah, 1 animal for Hassan and 1 for Hussein. So it showed the permissibility of this. So if the person is unable to afford or to offer to sacrifice 2 animals for the boy, then it's allowed for him to do 1. And some of the ulama hold, so that's concerning that matter. Then also they mention for the girl, then it is 1. Then the girl, in this case, that it is 1. So in this case, a difference between a boy and girl. So regarding what is offered for the boy and what is offered for the girl, a slight difference, as in this hadith regarding concerning Aqiqah. And next, a third matter that is discussed regarding the miqdar, the animals. that is offer, what kind of animals is to be offered. So the hadith mentioned shat, which is sheep or goat. So a sheep or goat can be offered, 2 for the boy, 1 for the girl, or 1 for the boy and 1 for the girl. That's allowed. But is it restricted only for goats and sheep? So regarding Aqiqah, is it only restricted, the animals to be used? Is it restricted only for to be used, sheep and goat and nothing else? With this, you find a discussion between ulama, with a khilaf between ulama regarding and concerning Aqiqah. يختص بالغنم, is it only specific to use? Is it only the one only allowed to use only sheep and goats and nothing else? So with this, a khilaf between ulama. So meaning, if one was to wish to offer a cow or a camel, is this allowed regarding Aqiqah? So in this matter, you find a khilaf between ulama. So all agree upon sheep and goats, but then they differ regarding animals such as other than this, such as cows and camel. So on this matter, you find qawlan. On this matter, there's qawlan. So you find that one of the view of the ulama is that it is allowed that one can offer as a sacrifice in Aqiqah cow and camel. Cow and camel also can be used. But I mentioned the person who's concerning a camel or cow, that you cannot per se, it cannot be something which is shared with others. So if a person, so it cannot be shared with others, as in the case of what? Udhiyah. So with that exception. So yes, they all that regarding concerning Aqiqah, one can offer cows and also camel for the child. That's concerning the qawl of some of the ulama regarding this particular matter. And they come to that conclusion based upon a hadith that related concerning the hadith of Anas bin Malik رضي الله عنه أن النبي عليه السلام قال من ولد له غلام فليحق عنه من الإبل أو بقر أو غنم. So he alayhi salam mentioned the hadith that regarding concerning the hadith of Anas, فقال من ولد له غلام, that the one who have been given or have a child, a newborn baby child, فليحق, so he can sacrifice, offer and sacrifice anhu, on his behalf, min al-ibl wal-bakar wal-ghanam. So can someone give the person that choice of the animals that can be offered as sacrifice for the newborn boy, for the newborn child. He mentioned, then he started concerning that ibl, camel, bakar, cows, or ghanam, or goats and sheep. So they say based upon this hadith, it gives somewhat some type of leniency that the person have a choice regarding those different type of animal, which is some of them other than sheep and goats, but includes cows and camel. That hadith also, it is narrated by At-Tabarani. That hadith in the Tabarani fi Al-Mu'jam Al-Saghir. At-Tabarani rahimahullah have many books in hadith, have several books in hadith. So you have these ma'ajim, amongst them the Saghir, the smallest. Then they mention concern about, as for this hadith, it is criticized. This hadith is considered to be da'if, amongst them Iraqi and others, to the extent that Shaykh Albani more inclined to the hadith is mawdu', the hadith is fabricated. So the hadith is very weak regarding the permissibility of the person using camels and cows as the animals to be sacrificed in Aqiqah. So the hadith is da'if. And that's the da'if jiddan, or close to mawdu'. As one narrator is considered to be of those who are kadhab. كذبه العلماء. The second view on this matter is the qawl of the ulama who all concerning that it is not allowed for one, la yajuz, it's not permissible for one to offer in sacrifice for Aqiqah camels and cows, but a person only restricted to sheep and goats. So one is only restricted to sheep and goats and not to use anything else, not anything above or below, not chickens. Or can the person use those animals above, which is cows and camels? And they mentioned, regarding, they said the evidence for this, they said all the hadith that are authentic, that relates to what animals to be used, only mention ghanam. All the hadith that relates to this topic that are authentic, that they only mention about sheep and goats as the animals to be sacrificed regarding Aqiqah, and the one that mention other than this, they're all weak and severely weak. So they said, and based upon this, then they're restricted to only sheep and goats that to be used regarding the sacrifice for Aqiqah. And Allahu Alam, that view seems to be strong. That view seems to be strong based upon the evidence. So that's concerning that matter. The fourth matter regarding al-miqdar, that is a person in using, for example, sheep and goats. If they mention how much for boys? Two. If one wants to add more than this, want to sacrifice beyond more than 2 sheep for a boy or goats, is this allowed? Some of the ulama, some of the ulama. So the next matter is regarding, is one able to can exceed 2 sheep or goat? Because the hadith mention only 2. Of the ulama, like I said, some of the ulama are inclined towards one should not add or exceed 2. And amongst them, Muhammad ibn Ibrahim, of the view that one should not exceed 2 animals, or 2 sheep or cows. So you have that discussion between the ulama of regarding the miqdar of what can be sacrificed. And mentioned that if it is 2 animals, they should be very similar. That it should be very similar. Mentioned and ghulam, Ch.10, mutakafiyatan, that they should be very similar. Aywa.
The difference in number of the sacrificial animals offered as aqiqah for males and females is due to the fact that a male's portion of inheritance in Islam is equal to that of 2 of the females. Moreover, the happiness of a father whom Allah grants a boy is usually much greater than the case of being granted a girl. This is why aqiqah, which is offered as a sign of gratitude to Allah, is double in the case of a newborn boy. Regarding the time of offering aqiqah, it is preferable to be done on the 7th day after the child's birth. However, it is permissible to offer it before or after that day. It is also more preferable to name the child on that day, as it is stated in the Sunan and other books of hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said, "Sacrifice is made for him, the newborn baby, on the 7th day, and he is to be named as well on that day."
So the next matter discussed, or the next 2 matters discussed concerning being the 5th. So he discussed after concerning the hikmah as being the 5th of those matters regarding why the difference between a male and female child. So it's discussed concerning things that you have the author put forward regarding possible reasons why the difference between a boy and girl regarding the number of animals can be sacrificed. Then I mentioned the 6th masail or masala on this matter regarding waqt al-dhabh. So what's the time that the sacrifice in Aqiqah is to be offered? When is the sacrifice to be offered? So I mentioned regarding concerning that the ulama all concerning that one, that based upon the hadith, that it is preferred to be done, that the hadith stated that it's to be done on the 7th day. So the 7th day is when the sacrifice should take place. So offering of the sacrifice for the boy or for the girl should occur on the 7th day of their birth. So they mentioned regarding the 7th day, for example, they were born on Friday. So it'd be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So it will be, so it is counted from the time of their birth. It's also concerned, so that will be counted in that manner. So it will be counted in that manner. But also, so it said the 7th day is what the hadith kind of somewhat mentioned. But also they mentioned that it can be, if the person wants to miss the 7th day, then he can go on until, he can put it off until the 14th. And if he missed the 14th until the 21st. Even though the hadith that mentioned those, the 14th and the 21st, there's some discussion regarding the authenticity of the hadith. But I mentioned there's a practice amongst the Salaf, or the practice amongst the Salaf, that they used to do off it with the hadith that mentioned this, that there's some discussion regarding the authenticity of those hadiths. Then also they mentioned the next matter regarding the timing before the 7th. So I mentioned after. So if it's after, ideally some mention the 14th or the 21st. After the 21st, then any day is open, but it should be done. If the person already intend to do it, he should carry through on doing it at any time after the 21st. If it's then the next thing regarding before the 7th day, doing it before the 7th day of the child's birth. As the hadith mentioned, the 7th day. They mentioned, as he mentioned here, jaz. It is allowed to be done before then. Some of the ulama even mentioned it is preferred to be done before the 7th, because there are many hadith where people brought their child to the Prophet Islam, and on the same day, and he named them. The child was named. This is regarding so they mentioned that there was name, but concerning name, but also they mentioned it's permissible. So they mentioned it's permissible that the sacrifice can be done before the 7th day. Of the ulama mentioned that it is permissible, and some mention it is permissible, but they see it as dhab adi. It's a general dhab. So preferable for the person to wait until the 7th to do so. But if it is done, I mentioned أو بعضه يعني بعض, and says that jaza. If it's done after, it is permissible. But as for before, then the person should wait. Then before, the person should wait, even though some mention give a permissibility, but the mention becomes adi. So preferable, ideal for the person to wait until the 7th or after to perform the sacrifice. Before, some give some permissibility, but considered to be adi. So that's concerning that matter. The next matter discussed concerning a tasmiyah. So أفضل أن تسمي في هذا يوم يعني يوم السابع. So mention هذا يوم, if you meant concerning with يوم concerning, that meant the 7th day. So of those things to be done, that the child to be named by the 7th day. The child to be named. Also of those things to be done, the name of the child on the 7th day of their birth. So I mentioned fi sunan, that a hadith regarding concerning that the child is to be named on the 7th day, and he mentions one of those hadiths that were mentioned before. So on the 7th day, the child to be named, also being named before. Of them mentioned to know that it can be done, even more preferred. So regarding name of the child, that if he was to be named before the 7th day, it is jaiz, permissible. And also some of the ulama incline that it is preferred. As many companions, they mentioned several companions that they came with their children to the Prophet of Islam, and on the first day, early days, and the child was already named. The child was already named, and this was before the 7th day. So they mentioned that it is something which is allowed and can be done. It is allowed and can be. They mentioned وُلِدَتْ لِي غُلَامٌ, as in the hadith Abu Musa in the Sahihain. وُلِدَتْ لِي غُلَامٌ, I had birth of a young boy. فأتيته بنبي الإسلام, so أتيت به نبي الإسلام, so I brought him to the Prophet Islam. فسماه Ibrahim, and he mentioned that he was given the name Ibrahim. So they mentioned so it shows that the permissibility that soon after the child was born, he was brought to the Prophet Islam, and the child was given the name Ibrahim and other names. Another child was given other names. So overall, that they mention it is permissible, but the 7th day, that child is to be named. Also, the child name, if you were given the first couple of days, you chose a name, and then you chose a name, then wish to change it, then that can be done. So the person might already decide upon a name from the early days that we intend to give the child such name, but then later on, few days in, they decide they want to change it before the 7 days. The 7th day, that can be done. Or even after the 7th day, it can be done. So the name can be changed of the child. With today's system is that the child name is registered at a certain time. But with registration, it becomes like his official name. If you wish now to change it, then you have to go through a process to do it done in an official way. So the name changing can be done if they choose a different name. So that's concerning that matter regarding the name. As for the names that they mentioned, you'll mention certain guidelines regarding the names. Aywa? Ay? Aywa?
Just going back a bit about where the author uses surur as
Joy. Happiness.
As he uses that to say that the girl's better than the boy. How?
As I said, certain things is mentioned as a possible hikmah. So that's I mentioned the word possible hikmah of a wisdom behind certain things. Those things are not things that are clear text. You understand? So.
Naming and other things, that's clear text. There's clear text on that.
And said regarding concern, so he mentioned concerning soror that he mentioned regarding soror, regarding concerning the difference between a boy and a girl regarding 1 and 2 animals.
Yeah.
You understand? So I said, no, those things are said, things that someone put forward. There's no clear text regarding those things. So that's so. That's the intention, wasn't to make too much of a discussion because there's no text on those things. So it's a possible hikmah regarding those things. Aywa.
It is permissible, however, to name the child on the day of her birth. For some scholars maintain that this is a more preponderant than naming the child on the 7th day of her birth. On the other hand, it is an act of the sunnah to give the child a good name. For the Prophet ﷺ said, on the day of resurrection you will be called by your names and by your father's names. So give yourselves good names. The Prophet ﷺ liked good names and forbade giving children names suggesting worshipping other than Allah, such as calling a child Abdul Kaaba, servant of the Kaaba, or Abdul Nabi, servant of the Prophet, Abdul Masih, servant of Isa, Abdul Ali, servant of Ali, or Abdul Hussein, servant of Hussein. In this regard, Imam Ibn Hazm, may Allah have mercy on him, said, Muslim scholars agree on the prohibition of giving children names indicating servitude to other than Allah, such as Abdul Umar, Abdul Kaaba, and the like. However, there is no unanimous agreement on the prohibition of referring to or mentioning the people who already have these names, such as Abdul Muttalib, Beni Abdul Dar, and Abdul Shams, but not to name after them. Sorry, Umar, the name, you got like Nasruddin, Tajuddin, Jamaluddin. Why are these names?
Okay, are complete, then we'll wave and complete.
Okay. However, it is detestable to give a child an inappropriate name that suggests a bad quality, such as Al-Asi, the disobedient, Kulay, doggy, Dodgy. No, it says doggy.
A kulayb, like a small kulayb.
Hanzala.
A Hanzala. Aywa.
It's not in English. Murra. Bitter.
Murra.
Wa
Hazan.
And Hazan. Sadness or difficulty.
So after thinking of the author, Rahimullah, now our Hafidullah, Saleh Hafidullah, which now to expand to discuss more in detail regarding certain guidelines regarding that as he mentioned regarding of the Sunnah that a child to be named on a certain time. Then he mentioned that also that the child one is allowed to name the child before the 7th day. Then he went on to the next matter, which concerning that of the things regarding of giving of names, selecting of names for the child, whether a boy or girl, that the choose concerning tahsin al-ism, that one try to give the child a good name, so try to give a child a good name and try to avoid. And then he mentioned concerning that of the reason why this is stated regarding of giving the child of a good name, that he mentioned the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ in the Abu Dawud mentioned إنكم تدعون يوم القيامة بأسمائكم وأسماء آبائكم. Then he mentioned فأحسنوا أسمائكم. Then he mentioned concerning the hadith that you will be called on يوم القيامة by your names and that of your father. Means the brother Fulan ibn Fulan. So the child will be kind of somewhat, or the name of your father being concerning your father's name. That shows one that the child of his name, but also he keeps his father's name. So the child is still old to his father's name by way of the surname or the likes. And for this particular hadith is mentioned here that the ulama mentioned concerning that particular hadith about إنكم تدعون يوم القيامة بأسمائكم وأسماء آبائكم وأحسنوا أسماءكم. That hadith is da'if. So that hadith is da'if based upon that one that said all the narrators are thiqat إلا Abdullah ibn Abi Zakaria. All that the issue is that he did not meet Abi Darda. So he did not meet concern the person than the Sahabi who the narrated the hadith with Abi Darda that they didn't meet. So there's inqita, there's a breakage in the there's a breakage in the chain. There's a breakage in the chain is not connected, so it's disconnected because of there was no meeting that occurred between that narrator Abdullah ibn Abi Zakaria and Abi Darda. So the hadith is said to be da'if. And also Ibn Hajar, all the hadith mentioned this, and also Al-Munziri that mentioned the hadith fi'i hadith munqata. There's the hadith is breakage inside with the hadith regarding the isnad. But a general concerning theme of hadith regarding concern that calling by good name is something which is established. With the Prophet of Islam, that you find that individuals who have evil name or bad names, he changed them. Then he gives some guidelines regarding that, of the thing that good names, and also to drive to avoid concerning names that are considered to be haram, such as concerning Habid, li ghayrillah, such as Abdul Kaaba. We find that he's mentioning names that are actually used by some Muslim. So he mentioned Abdul Kaaba, Abdul Nabi, Abdul Rasul, Abdul Masih. I've never seen Abdul Masih, but you have Abdul Ali and also Abdul Hussein. So you find that some of these names that he mentioned are actually used. Nam, Abdul Hussein, Abdul Ali, by those who are the Rafidah. Nam. So some of these names concerning Abdul Nabi, some people go overboard regarding Nabi concerning Aylat Tasawwuf, that they go overboard. So those names are not to be used, because the person being subservient to another servant. So that's concerning those names that are not to be used. Then also, as the brother mentioned regarding that, you'll find that at times you have certain names that become used names. Tajuddin, Nasiruddin, Muhyiddin. So it is mentioned that this practice, they mentioned that some dislike this type of use. It's more of a title that they use, that are normally used, given to certain type of the ulama. So I forgot the system, but for example, if a person's name was Muhammad, then they'll call him, one of those, his title will be, for example, Tajuddin. Or Abdullah, then they call Muhyiddin, as an example. So certain names, some of those titles used to be attached to it. Or some of the ulama have given that name because of their effort regarding reviving certain matters of Islam. Muhyiddin, Tajuddin. So Taj means like a crown. Muhyiddin, the person who revive. Nasiruddin, the person kind of somewhat gave strength. But there was like titles given to some of the scholars because of their efforts regarding Islam. But then became names that were used. So later on becomes not per se a title, but became name. Nasiruddin became a name. Tajuddin became like a name. So the ulama mentioned something which is disliked, as this practice was not known amongst the Salaf, that they would kind of somewhat use these type of names. So the example they mentioned, that Shaykh Muhammad Nasiruddin Albani, that he wanted to, or went, or did he, or was more inclined toward changing Nasiruddin from his name. So you have that, but generally concerned that it is something which is disliked to be done regarding giving up that type of name to individuals. Then also that they mentioned that also something Professor Abdul Muttalib, Hasha, regarding a person named Abdul Muttalib, that the Prophet's name, that his name is Abdul Muttalib. So because that was already established, they continue, but that kind of somewhere before Jahiliyyah was established, it's still used by way it was something with that, but it is not something that we should practice, or something that we should continue to do that practice of saying Abdul Muttalib and the likes. Abdul Shams, we find that in Jahiliyyah people call Abdul Shams and the likes. So those type of thing that one should, if it is found, because that was the name of the person then in Jahiliyyah, but it would not be continued. That practice would not continue. And also names that are clear-cut wrong. That once in a particular location, particular country, that someone was in a store and talking about, and the person said, "What's your name?" and gave his name, and his name was, I don't want to mention his name. No, don't want to mention a person's name. But it was a person with a kafir. But you have a name that no one should have this name at all. but he had that name.
Shaitan?
No. A name that no human being should have. No one should have this name. So the person's name was Allah.
Oh, do we?
Yeah, well, kafir. So the person that says, no, that name is. You understand? But because something I find that a person, like I said, a non-Muslim country predominantly, non-Muslim country, Christian country, but also the person who didn't understand what it means. So you find that has become like in certain, in the Caribbean, and like even the States, or certain parts of that start adopt names. People use names, for example, a person might mean certain names become used, like for example, you have Hussein Bolt. But his family is not Muslim. But you find certain names, Umar, become popular in those particular areas, like in Jamaica, even though the family are not Muslim, but they kind of somewhat like these names, so they're given these names.
Like in America, they use Jahim.
Hey, like with, hey.
Yes.
Yes, you might find sometimes so because of lack of understanding of the meaning, they might take on certain names, not understanding the gratitude of the concern, the problems or the pros and cons of those names, not understanding the meaning, so they can somewhat take on certain names, which is completely haram in certain cases. I'll mention calling your child Jahim. It sounds good to them, but that's not the name though. Huh? You understand? So it's a bit, and you find that like in certain parts, like like our family members, that their name is Rashad, which kind of somewhat so the father that is like the parents, so it's kind of to kind of somewhat use they consider past cultural names. You know what I mean? Going back to the roots type of name as they see, going back to the original roots and try to use the name of that. But sometimes how it is used and how it is spelled is completely different. So how they pronounce it and how they actually spell it is completely different. But I said no, because of lack of information about certain things, intent and what becomes the final act, sometimes a bit they're not in sequence. But overall concerning the avoiding of evil names, and also regarding concerning a name concerning for Muslim, regarding concerning names that are of popular names of al-kufr. Popular name of al-kufr regarding concerning that people are seems to be that people for them that they are trendsetters, or people are looked upon. They call them people are influencers, but are celebrities. Who sometimes set bad examples. So regarding concerns, so avoid those type of names that are celebrity names, but those people are bad example in certain things. So the main thing concerns avoid even concerning names of those type of names would also be included. Aywa, I mentioned Murra wal Hazan. You understand? Child you call, you understand? Hazan, sadness. Calling your child name Murra, something which is like more something is bitter. You understand? It just sounds not proper. Just sounds not proper. But sometimes a person might do because not understanding, not having the understanding of the word and what it means. This is a foreign word that goes rhymes or whatever, but Allah mustan.
Is there any issues with naming your child a cultural name? So, for example, me and you was talking, there was a name Aqiqah.
If it's cultural names, you understand, if it doesn't have a bad meaning,
Happiness or...
So for example, I say that in a cultural name, that
like a Yoruba name, for example.
That's type of name, that the meaning generally considered that even like in those cultures, you find Muslim also take those names. Because the meaning generally considered, those names have a meaning in that culture. And sometimes if they have a good positive meaning, then la haraj. And it doesn't contradict Islam, la haraj. And it says it relate to the person culture. It's not something which is foreign to the person culture. Clear? Aywa.
The Prophet ﷺ hated bad names of persons or places, and he ﷺ also pointed out The dearest of your names to Allah are Abdullah, servant of Allah, and Abdurrahman, servant of the entirely merciful. Thus, parents should choose good names for their children and avoid giving them prohibited or odious names. This is one of the parents' duties towards their child. Back to the issue of Aqiqah, the sacrificial animal offered is just like that offered as udhiyah, with regard to age and characteristics. The animal chosen to be sacrificed as Aqiqah should be at the prescribed age for being slaughtered, be free from any physical defects or sickness, and be of proper health and fleshness.
Aywa. So the author, Hafidullah, is again concerned that spend some of the time or some general guidelines regarding the naming of the child as what is concerned Aqiqah, but it comes also regarding with the child a package or a series of things that are done on the 7th day. So you find a series of things that are done on the 7th day regarding the child. So of those things that would be carried out, for example, the newborn regarding concerning the naming of the child, as he mentioned. Also other things will be the slaughter, which will be of the Aqiqah, but also other things that are done. Other things that are done concerning cutting off the hair of the child. So he hasn't mentioned it yet. If not mentioned, we'll add those things to the end, at the end, inshallah. So as additional stuff, we'll add those things. So we'll continue, so you can somewhat go back regarding concerning, as for the Aqiqah, which is the animal that is slaughtered. So also they mentioned, ulama who state that it should be similar, the animals that is slaughtered should share the same rules of that of the, or description of that of the udhiyah. Regarding concerning that, so something similar, they are free from any form of noticeable faults or defects, then and also they should be animals of a certain type of age and the likes. So of those things that they also include regarding al-Aqiqah should be very similar. Aqiqah animals should be similar to that of the animal of the udhiyah. Aywa.
It is also desirable for one to eat from the meat of the sacrificial animal one offers as Aqiqah. Its meat is to be divided into 3 parts, 1/3 for the owner, 1/3 to be given as gifts, and 1/3 to be given in charity.
So regarding concern al-Aqiqah, as you mentioned, that's the ulama of the view concerned that that a person should take some for himself, also give some give some in charity. So that so that type of, so some is distributed, some is given, and some is taken. So the person can somewhat not take everything, but also a portion is given away, and also the person of feeding of others and giving them, then also those things can be done. So the matter given cooked or uncooked, both are allowed. Aywa.
Unlike udhiyah, it is insufficient for people to share in buying an animal and sacrifice it as Aqiqah. They cannot, for example, share in 1 camel or 1 cow and sacrifice it, like in the case with udhiyah. This is because Aqiqah is sacrificed for a soul, so it cannot be shared. Moreover, neither the Prophet ﷺ nor his companions were reported to have shared in the sacrificial animals offered as Aqiqah. It is the duty of parents to bring up their children on moral values and moral manners so as to grow up as virtuous men and women.
Aywa. So just another, so regarding concern the matter regarding and before so other thing regarding the Aqiqah, as is ending with this end the discussion regarding the Aqiqah. So the thing with the Aqiqah, that the animal is to be sacrificed for that newborn child, whether and some of the ulama all concerned is now if the child even was born what's the word? Stillborn, then that child is to be off, the Aqiqah is to be done for that child. So if the child was born stillborn, then that child is still the Aqiqah is still to be done for that child. Also, so if he was a stillborn or a child, qadrullah ma sha, that the child died before the 7th day. So the child was born, then soon after, a few days after, the child was to die, before the 7th day. Then also the child is deserving of an Aqiqah. So when the child is born, they said, but when the child is born alive or stillborn, then Aqiqah is to be done for that child. So So that's concerning those things. And also the child concerning stillborn as a form of burial. The child also, the stillborn, can still be named. Can still be named. Like for example, in this country, a part of the rules that regarding burial, that each person to be given, you have to be also the burial, you have to be registered. So also you be given a name. And also on the headstone, out of the plaque, or whatever is placed there, then it has to be given a name. Then normally, because that's the rule in the country, so everyone who's buried should have a name according to the rules of the country. But overall, it showed concerning Islamically that a child, whether stillborn or born soon after, before the 7th day, they can still be given a name. And second, also, Aqiqah can be offered on their behalf. Aywa, so that's also a point to add. Aywa.
When the children grow up, it is so difficult to change their characters and natures. Many individuals are corrupt because of the way they were brought up and lack the moral guidance in their childhood. Therefore, children should be kept away from bad gatherings and corrupt associates. Home should be a righteous religious atmosphere for a child, for it is the first school in a child's life. Thus, parents should spare their homes all means of corruption and viciousness, especially today, when the means of corruption are prevalent everywhere and fill up homes, except for those safeguarded by Allah's mercy. So parents should be aware of such corruptive means and bring up their children on worshipping and obeying Allah, honouring their religion, appreciating the Quran and loving it. These are the true means of achieving felicity in both this world and the hereafter. In short, parents or guardians should represent good idols for their children through their good manners, morals, habits and ethics. May Allah guide us all to what He likes and pleases Him.
Ameen. So the author, Hafidullah, kind of somewhat in regarding concerning certain matters regarding tarbiyat al-awlad. So in brief, that he mentioned certain things regarding tarbiyat al-awlad, regarding of those things regarding cultivating of the youngsters, and one that the responsibility upon the parents, which is both parents. So for the parents, kind of somewhat to take that responsibility first, and that they should try to make concerning, try their utmost regarding concerning that the upbringing of the child in a good way. And of those things that one, the parents, like within the home, set a right atmosphere within the home, as the parents themselves be a good example. So one, for the parents, meaning mother and father, that try to be a good example regarding how they concerning how they regarding their character, regarding their behavior and their practice, try to be a good example for their children, and also try to oversee and monitor regarding their children, regarding concerning, as he mentioned, the Shaykh mentioned regarding concerning يتجنب الطفل المجالس له, regarding concerning avoiding things of evil, whether concerning environments, settings, or people. So the parents can somewhat try to ensure that their children are in a safe and also good environment and setting, and also going to somewhat monitor, especially concerning in our time, regarding what the different things that they may be involved in. So generally they give those advice regarding the parents taking a responsibility serious and trying to ensure that their child is giving a proper upbringing. Then so that's concerned with the Shaykh, Hafidullah, I've mentioned regarding that matter, and then came to an end. So additional matter that we can add regarding what he mentions, or what was not mentioned, regarding concerning al-Aqiqah, or what is normally discussed in the bab of Aqiqah.
I've just got a question about if a couple adopt a child and it's a newborn.
Hey, the same thing applies.
Same thing applies.
Hey, so the Muslim applies that adopt the child, then they take the responsibility of fulfilling those rights.
Okay. I just they want to get.
But the name has to be different from the other name.
It depends if one concerned to know that as adopt or said no, or adopt the child or brought the child into their life, then says no. Then if things that are not done regarding those things that we just mentioned were not done, then do it on their behalf. So if from either one, the child is from already a Muslim background, so either kind of somewhat try to confirm whether certain things were done. If not, then you can do it on behalf of that child. Because the child now become your responsibility.
I'm talking about the surname, for example.
The surname says that the surname, but the surname is to be left. The surname is to be left.
So the one that has no surname, how do you choose the surname?
Then say you choose your surname. The person, if the child has no surname, if the child does not have a surname, has no name, then you name them, and thus give in your name because their surname will not be known, isn't it? If they do not have a surname,
No.
you're saying that the surname is not known.
No.
Then you give them the name that, if you're gonna have, then you give them your name based upon they have no name.
Because there's an ayah that was...
And I understand them said, we're not talking about, we are saying the child is being adopted.
No.
The name of the child is unknown. So what name are you going to give to the child?
You have to name it.
Then you have to give the child, then Atina said, in this case, then you give the child your name because their surname, that is unknown. They become like, don't use the word John, but their name is unknown. So you will give them your name because you're the one now who's taking care, knowing that it, because of their circumstance.
Your name Sirajuddin, that child will be
So
called
the
Uddin.
reason why I said that it is an ayah.
I know the ayah. I'm not disputing the ayah. But I'm saying if you don't, the ayah concerning if the child already have a surname,
No.
then you're not to change it. But the child, we said the scenario, the child does not have a surname. You don't know their name. You adopt a child, and they said this child is unknown. They don't know the family or anything of the child. Then it becomes for you to give the child a name will be your name because you become the one responsible. So that's a clear, because of that circumstance. But instead the ayah is regarding concerning that in the sense that if the child, a person already have a known, established surname, but you have adopted them or take them in, then you should not change that name. Or even some, because of accepted Islam, that we already have a surname. Now it's established with your family names. Whether the person want to see that family name is because of whatever reason. But the fact that that name has been with your family for a while now, for centuries. Then the person, and that becomes your family tree now is linked with that name. Then the person shouldn't change it. I find that most of the Sahabi who change their names, they change their first name, not the surname. So the change of name is most of the person, regarding the person said the given name, not the surname. Aywa. Before we go, because I want to add my points before we...
So there was a generation of reverts who changed their first name and their surname.
Aywa.
And then they had children who adopted the new surname,
Aywa.
which was quote-unquote Islamic. What should the children of those reverts do? Should
Continue with that name.
the name that they were given?
The name they were given, as Nadam says. So ideally concerned, the parents who did not, shouldn't have done that, if you want to say that. But the fact that it's been done, then they continue with those names that they've been given.
Reverts back, does the children revert?
No, they revert back.
Reverts the name back to the original one. Should the children then follow
No, they keep that name.
the one that they were named?
The one that they were named. They can keep that name that they were given. Where are we at now? My points, or still have points?
No point.
Any other points regarding that? Khalas?
I just want to know about an example, Muhammad Ali, Cassis Clay. They used to say Cassis Clay before, but it became Muslim, it Muhammad. So it should, the Ali, I don't know where he's from.
I'm not sure. No, in the sense that Muhammad Ali was of a first generation of reverts. And also with that first, in the States in particular, that first generation of reverts, that they used to be a part of a organization that was called Nation of Islam. So a part of Nation of Islam believe then and still, possibly today, that they believe that to complete separation from who they see as their slave masters and their oppressors. So in any connection to them to be broken. So after this, so they said, so of that generation that got, they will change their entire name. But instead of look, my name is Muhammad X, Muhammad 10X, because the X was the unname. We don't know our original names. So they didn't give themselves a surname per se. It was like an X, meaning because we couldn't trace our original names. But then some adapted other names, you understand? But that was that their reason. Nam, so that's concerning that generation. Then, okay, finish with that.
Your point.
Okay, so so the author, Hafidullah, that most of the discussion was related to Aqiqah, with some additional stuff regarding concerning the naming, as that's the hadith mentioned the name of the child, giving the child the name. So most of the discussion was, and also the slaughtering. So those are the main discussion. Another of those things that are included in the discussion regarding of those things that are done. So of the package, a group of things that are done regarding for the newborn. So we have the Aqiqah, one that was discussed regarding the slaughter. Then for the child. Next, the naming, also discussed. Another thing that are also included regarding concerning cutting of the hair of the child. So you have a discussion also of the hadith, some of the hadith mentioned regarding the cutting of the hair of the child. So they mentioned that also this is something to be done. So they mentioned that meaning shaving of the hair of the child. That hadith mentioned also to be done on the 7th day. So they mentioned yuhlaq rahsahu wa yusamma, so the hadith in the arba that they mentioned that of the 7th day activity, things to be done for the child, that the child here is to be shaved. So they mentioned that for the boy, yes, is here to be shaved. They say it is mustahab, it's not wajib. Clear? So I mentioned it is mustahab, that the hair be what? Shave for the boy. Then a discussion regarding the girl. Is it to be done for a girl or not? Meaning the girl baby, is her hair to be shaved or to be left? Of the ulama of the Hanabila who hold that you are not to cut the girl's hair, and others who hold that it can be done. So you have a discussion between the ulama. So regarding the girl, a discussion regarding some hold that she also, the rule that applies to the boy applies also to the girl. And those who hold that mention for female as a general rule, because it's that for the female adult girl, lady, her hair is not to be shaved, or it's haram. So that's a similar thing applies to the baby and to the newborn. But others will mention that's not the case, that for the adult, grown up, but as for the baby, then of those things that relates to them regarding the hair, and the hair is cut, so they have new hair that is now grown, strong, but Allahu Alam, I'm more inclined that the view that is permissible for a girl hair to be shaved, that view also that's more of a weight. So for both boy and girl, baby, newborn, that their hair is to be shaved to the person's best ability if they are able. Everything the person can do everything, then that's ideal. So everything is to be dimension yuhlaq rahsahu. That mentioned that the hair, the entire thing to be shaved. So that's, if it does no hair, then khalas, then no hair. Some mention still, but then there's nothing to be done in that case. So that's concerning the hair. Another of those things that hadith mentioned regarding concerning that other hadith mentioned regarding with the other hadith that mentioned about on the 7th that for the baby who is born regarding calling the adhan and the iqamah. So of those acts to be done for the child is calling the adhan and the iqamah in the ear of the child. Yes, some hadith I discussed that and we'll discuss. So that's the next matter regarding, is it the permissibility of calling the adhan and the iqamah in the ear of the child. Taib. So you have some hadith that mention this. All the hadith are daif. All the hadith, so you have the hadith of, but you find that the jumhur of the ulama, majority of the ulama, that takes the position that it is mustahab, preferred, that the adhan be called in the right ear and the iqamah in the left ear of the child. That's the call of jumhur of the ulama, amongst them the Shafi'iyah and the Hanabila wa ba'da Malikiyah. Takes that view, that it's preferred that the adhan to be called. I would say how you have to shout out. Doesn't mean shouting, but to call the adhan in the right ear of the child and the iqamah in the left ear of the child. That's jumhur of the ulama. And the reason why they have taken this position, you have several hadith, about 4 also hadith or 3 hadith that mention this. All the hadith of the hadith of Abi Rafi, قال رأيت رسول الله الإسلام أذن في أذن حسن ابن علي حين ولدته فاطمة. And that hadith, so the hadith mentioned that Abi Rafi, that I saw the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called the adhan in the ear of Hassan ibn Ali when he was given birth by his mother Fatima. That hadith is collected by Abu Dawood with Tirmidhi wal Hakim, but I mentioned the hadith is da'if. The hadith is da'if due to Asim ibn Ubaidullah, that Jumhur of the ulama all that person to be da'if due to his hifz. So Shaykh Albani also that hadith to be da'if. So that hadith is da'if. Regarding that hadith, can someone mention regarding the adhan? I didn't mention which ear. That's mentioned that he saw the Prophet Islam, the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, called the adhan in the ear of Hassan ibn Ali when he was given birth by his mother. The second hadith that mentioned a hadith of Hassan ibn Ali, أن رسول الله عليه السلام قال من ولد له مولود فأذن في أذنه اليمنى وأقام في أذنه اليسرى لم يضره صبيان. So this second hadith that is narrated by Ibn Sidni. So Ibn Sidni, that he has a book called Amal Yawm wal Layla, Amal Yawm wal Layla, with a book about azkar, different azkar to be said on different situation and circumstance. So he mentioned this hadith that mentioned that the Prophet mentioned regarding that adhan is to be called in the right ear and the iqamah in the left ear of the child when they are born. That hadith, and why لا يضر لا تضره صبيان, that he would not be harmed by the shayateen. Sibyan, one of the groups of the shayateen. Nam. So that's concerning those hadith. That hadith also is daif, and even this one daif jiddan. This one either daif jiddan, very weak hadith. The third hadith, the hadith of Ibn Abbas, that mentioned أذن في أذن حسين ibn Ali يوم ولدت فأذان في اليمنى وأقام في اليمنى، أو فأذن في اليمنى وأقام في اليمنى. That Islam mentioned hadith Ibn Abbas that the Prophet Islam that he mentioned that the adhan was made in the right ear of Hassan ibn Ali when he was born, and also the iqamah in his left ear. Also that hadith is da'if in the Bayhaqi, and the hadith is da'if jiddan also. The hadith is da'if jiddan. So you find the best of these hadith, the hadith of Abi Rafi, that hadith is weak, that only mention about calling the adhan, not in the right ear, but as calling the adhan. They mention right or left ear. Then that hadith is da'if. And the second other hadith, they are somewhat very weak. So Shaykh Albani, or the hadith is mentioned, Shaykh Albani, that he mentioned a hadith of Abi Rafi is Hassan based upon the other hadith, but they are very weak. So those hadith are not able to give strength to anything, and the hadith of Hassan cannot be strengthened by a very weak hadith. So all them the hadith, so the matter, so all those hadith are weak. All the hadith about calling the adhan or the iqamah are weak. As for the iqamah, even more so, no. Some of the ulama give some leniency regarding the adhan. So regarding the iqamah, it is not to be done at all. As for the adhan, some give some leniency. As some mention the practice of the Saleh, or some of the ulama mentioned that of the practice that of the ulama regarding this. But overall, Imam Malik rahimahullah does not see the permissibility of calling the adhan or the iqamah. Imam Malik rahimahullah doesn't see the permissibility of calling the adhan and the iqamah because all the hadith that relates to it is weak. And so some of the ulama can try to use regarding fadal al-amal because the hadith is weak, but the case of fadal al-amal then should be done. But saying something is mustahab, something which is mashru', then those things it requires clear text. It requires clear text regarding these matters. So overall, adhan and iqamah, all hadith is weak. It is stated that Shaykh Albani may have come back on his view regarding the authenticity of those hadith, but in all case that the hadith relating to a hadith that relates to calling the adhan and the iqamah, that they are weak. And even the one about iqamah, even more so. So generally, that's those additional matter that are mentioned. Welcome, Samtul.
The issue of, I think we did mention circumcision.
Circumcision, so that circumcision also of those things. Also regarding circumcision, regarding of those things that are of the things to be done for the newborn. So circumcision regarding of a sunnah to be done. The ulama have a khilaf between the ulama regarding circumcision for the boy. That's some of the ulama, that is wajib. Circumcision for the boy, it is wajib to be done. As for the girl, some who incline that there's no hadith that encourage it being done for the girl. But a general permissibility.
All within 7 days?
So regarding concerning the permissibility of circumcision for the girl, some of the ulama, in discussing this matter, they mentioned there's no clear hadith about it being must upon the female. And that's the case. There's nothing to say it's a must upon female to get circumcised. So there's no hadith that like this. So they can somewhat leave it as for the boy though, they mentioned it is wajib. As for the time frame for it to be done, they mentioned it can be done at any time. That from time of birth up until that ideally it should be done before puberty. To be done before puberty for the boy. So when it reach puberty, it is already circumcised. But the earlier days it is done is the better. So they have within the earliest time it can be done, then that is preferred regarding circumcision for the boy. But as for the girl, there's no clear text regarding it being something to be that's a must upon female. That's a must upon female. And what is done in some practice regarding circumcision for female, that regarding in certain culture that it is done, that needs to be reviewed regarding the way they do it. Regarding concerning the procedure of what they do, that needs to be reviewed regarding concerning, because there's a very, what is done in certain places, then the ulama mentioned that it is not permissible. The way it is carried out in certain places, based upon cultural practices, where she somewhat sewed up together. Then those things are not permissible because it have no health issue that relates to it. So that's concerning those matters. So, aywa.
Quick question. In terms of, is there permissibility in some Muslim countries, there's like a cultural ceremony of circumcision, especially West African countries. It's like a cultural kind of like rite of passage. Is this not to be done?
To be reviewed. To be reviewed. Any other questions? So that's concerning of those things. So of those things that relates to the newborn. So you find that we have the Aqiqah. Then we have concerning the naming. We have concerning for the boy circumcision. For the newborn in general. As you have what we discussed concerning the cutting of the hair. Also regarding cutting of the hair for the child and weighing it and giving the weight, the equivalent in charity. Then those hadith also, they mentioned that there's some discussion regarding those hadiths. About the hair that is cut, it is to be weighed and then given the equivalent given in charity. There's some discussion about those hadiths, about its authenticity. So that's also a next matter. Also of those things that mentioned, yes, so some of those things that are mentioned regarding the Aqiqah, but said is regarding, because there's different things. The authors mentioned some things, and I mentioned that the topic is much more detailed topic regarding of those things that are done for the newborn, of those things that are done for the newborn. Other thing that they discuss concerning a tahniq. Tahniq is concerning that when the newborn will be brought to someone that is considered to be religious, a person like a status, like some religious role that will be brought to that person. He would take like a date or something of sweet, chew that thing in his mouth, and then put that in the mouth of the child, rub it in the mouth. They call it tahniq. They normally use dates, type of thing. A discussion between the ulama, that is this something which is specific to the Prophet of Islam or something which is open for all. So they mentioned most of the hadith or the hadith that discuss concerning tahniq, doing of this act, that all the hadith only mention about that the Prophet is the only one they did it with. After his death, he does not know they did it with Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, or the great Sahaba. No one used to come to them and do this act. So some kind of the index, so some mention that seems to be that the Sahaba understood that was something which is particular to the Prophet Islam and no one else. But we said some people still see it as something which is open for others.
Is that something that needs to be done though? No.
And we said no, not to be, but said some still got permissibility. So some still give a permissibility, but some who owes that it is specific to the Prophet Islam regarding the act of this tahniq, which is the dates and then putting the taste in the child's mouth. So those are some of the things. But said that, as the Shaykh mentioned, the important topic regarding a person who's, especially one who's looking to become a father. Regarding what are those things that of his obligation regarding that is expected to be carried out by way of him for his child. So that inshallah that we'll end with this, and then we'll stop until after the break. We'll resume inshallah. Wa billahi ta'ala tawfiq.